I said, hey, you want me to relace that for you? He goes, yeah, sure, that's great. I said, hey, now you got to remember back then it was an all black glove. And I said, well, how about we do it in brown lace, relace? He goes, oh yeah, that'd be great. That'd be cool, man. I'm like, all right, cool. Like we're stepping out there, you know. We've got a black glove with a brown lace is kind of one of a first of a kind.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Beyond the Glove. As always, I am your host, Ben Loafman. So within the glove world, I feel like there are thousands of stories tucked away with different individuals within the industry. And sadly, I think that some of these stories never receive the shine that they deserve. So for example, a unique story that we heard a few episodes back was when former MLB pitcher Jeremy Guthrie shared how when he was a struggling minor leaguer, to change things up, he requested the Pedro Martinez Rawlings pattern of glove, and he received it in a full New York Mets blue colorway, while not even pitching for a blue team. However, he pitched well in the glove and rode that momentum with that change of gear into a 10-plus season career. Further with these unique stories, last summer, we had Scott Bilodeau of All-Star on the podcast, and he let us know how Martin Maldonado, prior to the 2017 season, lit his All-Star catcher's mitt on fire trying to break it in, and then proceeded to use that glove for an entire season and earned a gold glove along the way. These are the stories that we want to highlight here on this podcast. And today we have a guest that is going to help bring some of these stories to life for us. Roman Bormet is a key account manager for Rawlings in Easton, and he's carved out quite a career within the sporting goods industry. For 30 years, Roman has helped push forward brands like Rawlings in Easton, starting as a territory sales manager for Rawlings in 1995. Roman, welcome to the show.
Man, what the intro. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I even know Scott Bilodeau, so I'll have to ask him about that story.
You'll have to. Yeah, Scott's we'd like to have him on the show again. He has lots of good stories. So I'm interested to ask you. So as far as starting out, you were a territory sales manager. So you graduate from Mizzou, the University of Missouri, in the early 1990s. Day one after college, did you just take a ride from Columbia, Missouri over to St. Louis and knock on the door asking for a job?
I wish it was that easy. I was working, I had graduated and, like many college graduates, you're not sure what you want to do or what's available. I was working at the grocery store, stocking shelves, just, making rent. And actually had throughout my, if you want to call it a playing career,
Roman was a University of Missouri baseball player while you're at Mizzou.
Yeah, I was on the team more than I played, but it was a great experience. But I'd befriended an umpire who was originally from my small hometown in Illinois, and he and I just kind of became friendly. Hey, how you doing? And he'd do a lot of the Big 8 games because he lived in St. Louis. He called my coach and said, hey, his wife worked at Rawlings, and hey, there's a position open at Rawlings. And is Roman still around town? If so, he might be interested in the job. So coach called me, got in contact with Rawlings, and got hired shortly thereafter. But it's really fortunate luck more than anything. But yeah, that was 33, almost 34 years ago.
That's wild. So that was like so was that like your first real job out of college? Like aside from stocking shelves, was it right on to Rawlings?
Yeah, that was it. I mean, that was it. I took my insurance license test to get my insurance license.
Nice.
But I was at work in the grocery store just, for about, 4 or 5 months trying to make ends meet. And then this came up. So yeah, I was very fortunate, very lucky.
Knowing you a little bit, I would imagine that you're probably pretty awesome in the grocery store. My wife goes to the grocery store. She goes to the grocery store with my kids, and they have there's two people there that they love. And every day they come home and they're like, we talked to Marlon. And I would imagine that you were the guy. You were Roman at Schnucks, just helping everybody out.
This was the local grocery store. It wasn't even a chain. It was like a
really?
store deal. So, and it was where a lot of college kids live. So I guess other than, trying to check out, a few of the good looking girls that would come through there, I didn't socialize too much with the moms.
There you go. Nice. With that first job though, so you do secure the job at Rawlings. So you were a territory sales manager. What all does that entail?
Well, for the first 3 years, first 3 years I was on the Rawlings Caravan.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yep. And then for the last 30 years, I've been in sales.
Okay,
So
gotcha. Okay.
yeah. So, but
So
yeah, my first job was with the as you called it, on the bus,
uh
which was really the Rawlings Caravan, and that was a semi truck. And this is where the first part of my whole introduction to gloves and repairs and all kinds of different things that I know we're going to talk about
mhm.
started. But it was a semi truck, and it had two trailers. And the front trailer is beautiful. It's black, and it had a big
Uh-huh.
baseball player swinging a bat on the side.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it was really cool looking. The front trailer was a museum. It had kind of an evolution of baseball.
Uh-huh.
At the time, Rawlings was doing football and basketball as
Yeah.
well. So kind of an evolution of equipment. Then the back trailer, the two back doors opened up, and there
Mhm.
was a lathe on the back. And my partner, who who I worked with, he would carve bats on the lathe
Uh-huh.
for pro players, for as a demonstration for people, and kind of make a little uh, mini demonstration on how to do it.
Uh-huh.
And then the side of the caravan, the back trailer opened up sideways, and we had stairs. And then people could bring their gloves to me, and I could relace them. I could burn their name in it. That was before
Mhm.
there was custom gloves.
So
Um,
did you have like the laser or engraver pen and were you just like doing your handwriting, like putting them in there?
yeah, it was. I had two different things. I had, if it's kind of like a real cheap glove, I would have like a gold or silver felt pen,
Okay, nice.
yeah, kind of like a Sharpie that I would just
Uh-huh.
put their name on it. And if it was leather, I had the old leather, the burning tool, the little
Yeah.
pointy edge with the big cork thing around it and
Yeah.
smell like burnt leather. And I would just block letter their names in it if they wanted it.
Yeah.
So it's come a long ways. There was no laser engraving at the time. There was no
Yeah.
custom embroidery, 4 week delivery. It was old school.
That's wild. I had someone came on. I think there's also another tool, it's like a wood burning pencil, like used to exist. And some people I've heard have used that, and it actually looked pretty good when people would do that in gloves and use that for kind of customizations. This was like 30, 40 years ago. But
Yeah, I'm sure their penmanship was much better than mine.
I was that was funny. I was like, I hope you had pretty good handwriting to you probably improved a little bit as you're going along.
I did. It was either block style or block style. You got one of those two choices.
Nice. You didn't do your cursive on any of it?
No, no, they couldn't have read it. They could not have read that.
So when you're going on the bus, where all did you guys go to? Sorry, not the bus, the caravan, the semi truck caravan. Where did the Rawlings semi truck caravan? Where'd you guys go?
Everywhere.
Okay.
It was awesome. Um, we would always do spring training.
Okay.
We do Florida and Arizona. We would do that just for a couple reasons. One, we would work with the players,
Yeah.
help service it a little bit. Again, my partner would make bats, and he would make prototype bats for players so they could try
Mhm.
them right off the caravan. I'd relace gloves, fix gloves for guys. Um, we did that with at spring training. We also did that as part of our authenticity. That
Mhm.
yes, we would get to work with the players
Mhm.
um, in the major leagues, and we could share some of that with the public as we went around to the rest of the country. We would do sporting good stores.
Mhm.
We'd do little league parks. We'd go to the All Star game every year. Work the ballpark, work Fan Fest. We do major league ballparks, minor league ballparks, fairs. We would do really any place that could kind of draw a crowd and had some type of baseball um, tied to it.
Uh-huh.
But we went to basically every 48 states and
Nice. And this was all
throughout.
with it. Was this like throughout the year? Was this just like spring training to like World Series time?
That's exactly it. We would leave in January, and we'd be out basically for 9 months. We'd come home
Okay.
every 6 or 7 weeks. We'd come home for a few days. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, we were out between. You just map out something from the East Coast going to the West Coast, or West Coast going to the East Coast, and hit. And a lot of it was obviously weather related. Early in the year, we'd stay in the South, and then
Yeah.
later we'd go, up further north.
I imagine, yeah, I feel like in the 90s, I remember as a kid, like we'd eat that stuff up. If you're like, dude, the Rawlings bus is going to be at such and such sporting goods stores, you're like, let's get over there and try it out. I feel like people don't do that stuff quite as frequently as they used to.
Well, because I mean, you got to remember there was no real video. You couldn't.
Yeah.
There weren't cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you could see something on TV, but it's not like you could get on your phone and search Google and find a video on how to make a wood bat or how to fix relace a glove.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's just a lot more human contact, and
Uh-huh.
the way to go experience something was to go do it in person, and we had to advertise in the paper,
Uh-huh.
on
Oh
the
yeah.
radio, at the store, at the location. So there was no internet at that point,
Mm-hmm.
in the early 90s. So I mean, it was old school to say the least.
Yeah. So when you get this job, so your old baseball umpire, he kind of gets you set up with this position, and so you go on the bus. Do you have like any formal training for how to relace? Because it sounds like that's your main task. Were you just like, I guess I got to figure this out as we go along, or how did that work?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. There's a couple things. Well, our glove factory at the time, where we made all of our heart of the hide gloves, was in Ava, Missouri,
Okay, and
which is
that's down,
southwest.
yeah, Springfield, kind of.
Yeah, just outside of Springfield,
Okay.
45 minutes or an hour. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where we made all the heart of the hide gloves back in, well, shoot, up until the mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a master glove designer. His name was Bob Clevenhagen. And
Legend.
I went down there and I spent, several days working with him, and he taught me, a fair amount. And they had people within the company down there that would, help. They taught me how to do a lot of it as well.
Uh-huh.
My partner who was on the Caravan also, he was pretty good at it, even though he did the bats. He knew how to do a lot of the gloves. And then, once you get into it, it's not that difficult. I mean, there's a few, tricks to just kind of how you turn the leather, and you just want to follow the pattern.
Yeah.
But I remember one time as my first spring training,
Mm-hmm.
and you remember Terry Pendleton?
Yes, played for the Cardinals.
Played for the Cardinals, third base. He
Uh-huh.
had his glove, and he wanted his fingers at the time, like the ball was kind of popping through the fingers,
Okay. Yeah.
And now, not that it's standard now, but a lot of times you just put two laces or one lace through here,
Uh-huh.
And he gave me his gloves. They're brand new, and he's like, "Yeah, could I do that?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I had no idea how to do it. So I never forget. I went back to my hotel room, and I'm like, "Man, I can't screw this one up." It's a major league player. It's kind of like my first assignment.
Yeah.
And my partner kind of helped me through it. And it's pretty simple. But I just kind of remember going, "Oh gosh, here's my first major league glove. I better not screw it up." So, but yeah, you kind of learn trial under fire. And thankfully, it wasn't brain surgery; it's just ball gloves. You could, if you needed to, you could start with a new piece of lace, or typically fix it.
Did you succeed on Terry Pendleton's glove? Did he accept
I did.
You did? Nice.
I don't think he knew that I was, a rookie and
Uh-huh.
a virgin at this thing. So I played it off, and I got it back to him, and it seemed like, things were fine.
That's funny that you say that. I have a funny story. There used to be a minor league baseball team here in Kansas City called the T-Bones. And one summer in college, I was like, it'd be fun to work in their clubhouse. So I signed up to be like the assistant clubby. Rough job, really awful. But I was like, I was just, I was going to be a go-getter. So these guys would come in, they're like, "Hey, can you sew patches in pants?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I can do that for you." And I brought it home, and I was like, "Mom, can you show me how to do this?" And she's like, "I don't think you're going to be able to figure out how to do this." So that whole summer, it got around that Ben knew how to sew pants back together. And I would take it home to my mom, and she would sew the pants back together for the players. And she was like, "Ben, I did not sign up for this job." And so the whole summer, but it's funny, just kind of where you're like, "Oh yeah, I can do that." And
your mom bailing you out.
Yeah, she bailed me out. You didn't have your mom to bail you out on that one.
No, I didn't. But yeah, same feeling though.
That's cool that you got to go down to Ava, Missouri and do that. It seems like that was when that was up and going, that was a really neat place, and kind of good for that community. I heard while it was up and
Yeah, I mean
going.
that's
So
what it was all about. It was the Rawlings factory. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
It was a lot of craftsmanship going on down there.
hmm So while you're on the caravan, at one point, you come across Hall of Famer, 10-time Gold Glover, and 13-time All Star, Ken Griffey Jr. So set the scene for us here. I have envisioned initially that like you were sleeping on this bus and you just like crawled off the bus one morning and after an all night driving, Ken Griffey Jr. just sitting there at spring training waiting with his club for you. But I'm going to imagine that that's not what happened. How set the scene for us for working with Ken
It
Griffey
wasn't
Jr.
quite that way, but it wasn't like too terribly far off.
Uh huh.
I would occasionally, well, my partner was also a truck driver by trade, and we had a bed
Okay.
in the back of the caravan. So I would take full advantage of that while he was driving.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, we would pull up to, the spring training, and this was in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see the ballpark, I can see it. I just can't exactly tell you which town it was at the time. But, we pull in pretty early before guys get there.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to the clubhouse guy. Hey, we're here today. Send some guys out if you want. If you need something, let us know. We're going to talk with the guys. So
Mm-hmm.
they have practice over. I go in and I'll kind of work the clubhouse a little bit. I'll find a
Yeah.
couple Rawlings guys just because, hey, you want me to relace your glove? You need this, you need that.
Mm-hmm.
And so Junior came up to me, and at the time it was the Pro T. It was a black
Okay.
trapeze.
Yeah.
It's just the Pro T. And he said, I said, hey, you want me to relace that for you? He goes, yeah, sure, that's great. I said, hey, now you got to remember back then it was an all black glove.
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, how about we do it in brown lace, relace? He goes, oh yeah, that'd be great. That'd be cool, man. I'm like, all right, cool. Like we're stepping out there,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We've got a black glove with a brown lace is kind of one of a first of a kind.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And now we have pink and purple and all these other colors. It's,
So
unicorn
basically
rainbow.
you brought on the pink and purples and highlighter yellows that we're all seeing nowadays.
I'm just going to stick with the black and brown.
Yeah.
That's all that's about as far as I can go. This old man can go. But so I was standing there and just kind of talking to him about it because all the, the leather and everything was back in the truck. So I was just going to take his glove and go back there. But then I looked above him and there was Randy Johnson because, Junior's, I don't know, maybe 6 foot, 6'1", not real, he's about, not super tall. And Randy Johnson, 6'10".
Uh-huh.
So I remember looking up at Randy and I'm like, and he's standing there with his glove.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay. And I'm kind of like, all right, next, and he goes, yeah, can you do kind of the same thing with mine? He just had a basket web.
Okay.
And so he wanted brown lace around that and then brown lace on the fingers.
Uh-huh.
So his big unit glove so I did that for him as well. So I did both those, but that was kind of one of the first or a couple of the first multicolored gloves with the brown lace and the black glove.
So you get back to the caravan with your gloves. Are you like pooping your pants? Like, are you like, dude, I got Ken Griffey Jr.'s glove in my hand? And you didn't have a cell phone or anything, so you couldn't tell anyone at the time. You might have to write a letter to your friends that night or something like that. But were you like,
yeah, I had the old school camera with film, like 35 millimeter film. I think probably somewhere I've got a couple pictures of that glove. No, it's just kind of cool for me. I'm like, I mean, it's Junior, he's the man, especially back then.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know, it was fun, neat experience. And, just, so then what was fun then is then they took that glove and it became the Pro TB24, which became our #1 seller at Rawlings, all black with the tan lace on the fingers. And it went from the Pro T to the Pro TB tan and black 24 for Junior.
Yeah. That's
so it got renamed.
That's pretty awesome. That's so cool that you were a part of that story. When I was a little kid, I kind of paid attention to gear, not really, but I knew that Ken Griffey Jr. had a black and tan glove, and that the lace was tan and it was different colored. So it is cool to see like that glove would reach even across the. I was pretty young at that time. The other thing that's really cool is, like when we think of, nowadays people that are following gloves really closely as far as Rawlings patterns go, you got like the NP patterns really popular. When Tulo was playing, you had the TT2 and but the TB24, that was that before, 20 years ago, probably a little longer, was like, that was what everybody was trying to get. And then also with Rawlings, you guys were killing it with the autographs and the palms. I feel like that was
Yeah,
a huge thing
yeah,
as well.
for
With
sure.
you're like, oh, who's the autograph in your palm when you're sitting on the bench with your buddies as a kid. I remember one of my buddies was like, I have Tom Seaver. And we're like, who the heck is Tom Seaver at that time? Like, because
Yeah.
this is 98 and we're all 8-year-olds or something like that. But no, that was really cool. When Griffey came to you, was he already like a shining star? Was this like
Oh yeah.
backwards hat Griffey, or was this like young and not quite made it there yet?
It was right at backwards hat Griffey. I
Okay.
think that year is when he was doing the home run derby contest in
Okay.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the first time he did it back. Because either that year or the next. They were back to back. Then he hit the home run that hit the building in Camden
Yeah.
Yards.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was right in his sweet spot when he was, you know, on his way to becoming an all-star.
Yeah, that's really cool. My like first memory of backwards hat Griffey was in '98 at Colorado. I remember him like wearing the backwards hat at Colorado to hit in the home run derby. So that's really cool. But just moving on, I mean, in Griffey, he wasn't the only guy that you obviously Randy Johnson, the big unit that you helped out with glove work during your reign on the Caravan. From 1998 to 2000, there was nobody bigger in baseball or maybe even sports than Mark McGwire. As that was 98 was the year where he and Sammy Sosa set the world on fire with the home run chase. But similar to Griffey earlier, you did some work for his glove too, and go ahead, set the scene for yourself working with Big Mac.
Well, kind of a little bit of a similar story, but
Uh-huh.
he had an all black. It was a Pro CMH CB2.
Okay.
And it was
I
all
love that you
black.
know all the patterns too. You got
Well, I can't
those are
remember.
locked in up here.
Well, there was only like 6.
Oh,
There's
okay.
like 1,000 now.
Yeah.
There's no
Mhm.
custom gloves. There was, Pro 1000, Pro 1000H, Pro SPB, Pro T, Pro
Mhm.
H. They're pretty simple.
Yeah.
Um, but McGwire's was a Pro C. I just said it now. I can't. I
I'm
can
not
hardly
going to be able to
remember
read it
now.
back to you. But
CMH CB2.
there you go.
But it's all black. And
Mhm.
part of the issues with leathers back then is when you would dye it black,
Mhm.
it would take some of the life out of the glove.
Okay.
It would just make it a lot softer, and they would tear easier.
Mhm.
Is before they really had, like, we have Japanese tan leathers, and we have different tanning process. Back then you really only had like, I don't know, you had like 1 or 2 processes.
Mhm.
At least for Heart of the Hides, especially, it was the Horween leather. And then when they used the black dye for the leather, it just softened it and it would tear a lot easier, which
Uh-huh.
isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of people love the black gloves because the way they looked, really cool. Well, McGwire's was all black. Well, you can imagine as a first baseman, they're taking a pounding with
Mhm.
the throws. So his would tear some and kind of would go through some wear and tear. Well, the other thing that was kind of unique about I say unique, about the Caravan, was we would carry glove parts
Mhm.
for gloves for this reason. If a guy needed to change out an H web or a basket web or an I web, we would have the parts in the back, have the lace, and do it. Well, we only had the parts in tan leather.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, and we also would just carry a piece of leather hide. So if
Oh,
we
okay.
did need to do like a custom patch, my partner was really good at this, so I have to give him credit for that. But we had a little sewing machine back there, a little hand one,
Okay.
and he was good at, he could help patch that.
Okay.
So we took the Pro CMH CB2 and we put a brown piece of leather over the bottom part of the
Yeah,
web.
kinda like the fold over, I
The
think is
fold
what they
over,
call it.
exactly.
Mhm.
That's a
Yeah.
good description. And then we would, I poke the holes in it to the slots to lace it. But then we also had a crossbar that I
Uh-huh.
had in the Caravan that was tan, and the top piece that was tan.
Okay.
So that would give it more um, durability,
Mhm.
and just the brown. And plus, he was like, "Yeah, man, that'd be great." I said, "Well, I could do this in brown leather." He go, "Oh yeah, that'd be great. Do it in the brown." So we did the black glove with the brown leather webbing, and then
Mhm.
that became the Mark McGwire glove, and that was like our number one selling first base glove for a while.
That's so cool. Did you get any royalties for the
Absolutely not, but I mean, I guess they kept me around for 30 plus
There
years,
you
so
go.
I'll take that as a win. But yeah, no, actually, I've got a cool little picture up here on my wall of that. He's shaking my hand with the glove on, so that's kind of one of my keepsakes. Um, and somewhere I've got a VHS tape of him getting it, because we had the local. I became pretty good friends with the local sports guy in Phoenix after doing some spring training, and we showed him like us doing the glove, giving it to McGwire, and he was like, "Oh, this is cool. Rawlings only the best," and he like put the glove out towards the camera or something. So
Really?
kind of fun little piece. I've got it here somewhere. The VHS still works.
Nice. I have a couple VHS players at my house still. If you need to, you can mail it to me and I'll see if it still works for you if
I
you
may
need it.
do that. I was wondering if you were old enough to remember what VHS
Oh,
is.
dude, I still have, you might have watched these movies, but Ken Burns, the baseball documentaries.
Yep.
My
Yep.
parents only had it in VHS. So I was like, Dad, we gotta have a VHS so we can keep watching that documentary though. That is really cool that you were able to do that when you met with McGwire. He was Oakland. Was he with the Oakland A's at that time?
Yeah, he was with Oakland at the time,
Nice.
and he had yeah, before he went to the Cardinals, he'd kind of fought in some injuries
Uh-huh.
that part of his career until he got healthy. Then a few years later, he was, yeah, it was early on in his career. He's still fairly thin at that point.
I always remember those last few years in Oakland. He had that awesome little like kind of mullet that he had with the curly hair off the back. That was always a classic McGwire look on his last
Yeah,
days
solid mullet for
with
sure.
the A's. I also feel like you and McGwire, like, were you guys buddies after? I could see you guys being friends or something like that.
We didn't run into him. Well, I'd spent 3 years on the Caravan, so
Uh-huh.
um, couple of the guys, I kind of befriended because it was fairly regular.
Mhm.
But I didn't run into him too much after that, so I can't say that we were. But and then he
You weren't.
blew up bigger than big, when he was going through the whole home run race with Sammy Sosa. So
Mhm.
yeah, I would never probably speak to him again. So
But that still though, that's pretty good. Just all those experiences together, meeting those players, you see some of these, I feel like Robert Newman right now for you guys, he's like the knowledge behind a lot of the gloves. And you were kind of a little bit kind of like that when you were going, at least as far as patterns go. I'm sure you were a master at the end with going ahead and like lacing them up.
yeah, couple A Rod was one.
Okay.
He wanted to use, at the time, Ripken was his guy,
Okay.
growing
Yeah.
up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the way
Single
he tells the
post,
story.
fastback web. Was that what Ripken
It
used?
was an eye post.
Yeah,
It was
okay, mhm.
SP Pro H6 with a T web. I forget again. It was 30 years ago.
Uh-huh.
But it was just, well, it's a T web. Now it's kind of an I web, but it
Yeah,
was just this one piece that went all the way down and one
and then
piece that went
cross.
over.
Yeah,
And the deal was the Ripken's glove. The pattern was really flat,
okay.
and the web itself, the crossbar was really wide,
Mhm,
and it just kind of made for, I mean, Ripken, that was his deal, and he formed it his way, and it was bigger and flatter.
mhm.
And now it's just a lot more, I'll say, shaped,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah, they're
pocket
more
wasn't
definitely more
near.
of like a bowl now than that kinda
Yes.
like flat, I always feel like back in the day, everybody wanted their glove to close. I call it like thumbs up to the side, and now it's a lot more like this than it was back then.
Yeah, correct. And that crossbar was so long. I just thought it was really long. But A-Rod, hey, I want the Ripken. Well, what I ended up doing was taking that crossbar and just kind of cutting, I'm going to call it a half inch off each side. I don't know what, I eyeballed it and just kind of got it to where it brought that web in more instead of like this. And it just really, it gave it more of that bowl shape, which again, a lot of the younger guys were kind of going to.
Yeah.
And I cut that vertical piece was long as well. So I kind of cut that and just kind of tightened up the pocket. And then that became the Pro AR3 is what it was, more or
Nice.
less.
That's
So
cool.
I gave it to A-Rod and he seemed to like that. And then, we started making a glove. They tweaked it and made it over, at our factory. But it was the Pro AR3 is kind of how it got developed. But it was out of the Ripken pattern initially.
That's really cool. Wow. Do you have like a model of each of these on your wall? I see you got a lot of ducks and fish back there. Not as many gloves as it might.
I've evolved from then, but I don't know. When you're there, it's kind of like, I don't know. It seems not right. It's their equipment.
Yeah.
So unless somehow they would give it to you, I never really did that. It didn't seem right. Kind of like asking for autographs. You never really, you're around them and, you don't. There's an occasional, like Ryne Sandberg was my all-time favorite guy.
Yeah.
Growing up, I was a Cubs fan. Watched WGN, grew up in Illinois. He was my all-time. So I got to meet him. That was really like one of my all right, I made it moments. And I got to meet Ryne Sandberg with the Cubs at spring training. And one of the other deals we had, and we still do it to this day, is if you win a gold glove and wear Rawlings, you get to wear the gold patch. So we actually they weren't a gold, it wasn't just the patch, but it was the whole back side of the
where the
conventional back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it would go it'd circle all the way around the conventional back. It said Rawlings in gold. Well, I said, hey, do you want me to sew that on your glove? Because again, it didn't come from the factory that way, or at least it didn't back then. Well, we had a few of those. I'll call them patches, but they were bigger than that.
Yeah.
Because now you just get the gold patch. And that means you're a gold glover. You won the gold glove, Rawlings guy. So I sewed that all the way around, and that was my big moment because Ryne Sandberg was my guy. So
nice.
I did ask one time for his autograph.
Nice.
I'm like, dude, you're my guy. Can you help me out? He was really, he was cool with it. But then I got him the glove with his gold glove patch on it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. That is an awesome little story for you. As we've been going around telling these stories, you've talked about your guy you worked with on the bus. I feel like we need to get him some name recognition here. Who was this guy? It sounds like
he was the best. He was the best. Unfortunately, we lost him shortly after I got off the Caravan.
Oh, really? Okay.
Roy Conrad. Yeah, he was awesome, man. They called him the Batman because he'd make all the bats.
Really? Sounds like the glove man too. From
he did it for a better part of at least 10 plus years. He had a couple partners before me and a couple after me, and then unfortunately, like I said, he passed suddenly. But he learned to do everything on that. As far as driving the truck, he could do gloves. We would sew baseballs, show you people how we sew baseballs. Talk to the media. He was the best, awesome guy. He certainly took care of me, but yeah, his nickname was the Batman.
The Batman. There you go. Nice.
Yep.
This is fun. So as we talked about the Caravan at the beginning and then kind of all throughout here, so you eventually move on from being on the Caravan. You're handling accounts for Rawlings and Easton, like ours here at Pro Athlete, where we run not only just gloves but just bats too. And so you visit our building quite a bit. Roman's always around. It's always always a good day when Roman's in. So
well, you guys have free food there.
That's true. Yeah. So, but during one of your visits here a number of years back, you take a little jog out of our building and go ahead. What happened on the jog?
This was mind blowing. If I ever needed to know that there was a God, I knew it that day when I was in your building.
Okay.
So I'd worked for Rawlings for 25 years.
Mhm.
I got a job offer to work for Easton um, prior to the Rawlings Easton coming
Yeah.
together.
Uh-huh.
And so I ended up accepting that position. And my first sales call after I took the Easton job was to Pro Athlete to go to
Uh-huh.
Just Bats and Just Gloves. And if for those of you who don't know, their offices are the best in the country. They've
Thank
got
you.
workout facilities, they've got showers, they've got fun stuff in there. They've got a cafeteria that's great. So I tell, the buyer, Ryan, at the time, who I was working with, I'm like, hey, we got done. I said, I'm going to take a run and, then just get a little workout and shower up here. He said, all right, no problem. So I run out of your offices, go down the street, and around the corner comes the front part, the truck, the
Uh-huh.
caravan, not the
Okay.
trailers, but just the actual truck. And I stop and look because on the side that used to say Batman Roy Conrad, and it still had the outline of
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Batman Roy Conrad. Because on the
Mhm.
other side it said Glove Man
Oh,
on
really?
there. They didn't ever put my name because they kind of worked through. They would go through us guys, but
Yeah.
Batman was on the other side, and that had been taken off. But I looked at it as it went by, and that was a sign from God that Roy was telling me uh, that he was watching me because I left Rawlings and went to work for Easton.
Uh-huh.
So, but I'll never forget that because that drove right by me. Ended up tracking the guy down and talking to him about where he got it and stuff. But yeah, that
Uh-huh.
was um, crazy personal story for me. I'm sure anyone watching is going like, "Who cares?" But it was pretty crazy.
That's pretty cool though. And then, sure, Roy must have been doing some work for you up there because the merger between Easton and Rawlings joined forces not too long later. So,
Yeah,
um,
worked out fantastically. Yes.
nice. Well, Roman, I appreciate you coming on for this podcast today. This has been super fun. There's, within, people listening, there's a lot of individuals who handle accounts for all the brands, Wilson, Rawlings, everyone, All Star, everyone out there, and most people, it's very genuine coming from you. You've had your hands on everything that Rawlings had at some point, so it is really cool to see someone who's worked from like the entry level all the way up to where you are now. So those are cool. Thanks for sharing some of these stories.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. It's fun.
yeah. So before we end every episode, we do three strikes. So it's three more personal type questions before we send you off. So, we say you get 20 seconds like the pitch clock, but you can take as long as you want. So for strike one, question is, if you didn't work in sporting goods, what would you do for your career?
Well, I was headed down the insurance path. Thankfully, I got saved by Rawlings. But if it wasn't for that, my true calling would have been to be a major league umpire.
Really nice. Okay,
Yeah.
I can see that. Do you were like you would have gone to umpire school and gone that
Well,
route?
that was just starting
Okay.
when I was back. I mean, like, I think it was Harry Wendelstadt.
Okay.
They had an umpire school that had just opened, like when I was
Hmm.
graduating college. But
Okay.
had I had a chance to do it all over again, I would have absolutely done that.
Really? Did you
Yep.
was that your job growing up in the summers and things like that? Did you umpire?
I did a little bit of that. Again, I guess I was a catcher, so balls and strikes were easy. That's
Okay.
the easiest part. And I don't know, I just feel like especially as a catcher too, you kind of know what's going on in the game
Yeah.
because you kind of have to. You kind of hear when the dugouts are chirping, and you kind of
Mhm.
see when this guy's messing with that guy, and
Yeah.
then you have to know the X's and O's and the part of the game. Um, I would have loved to have done it and felt like I'd have been well suited.
Mhm. I could see you could handle a good catcher umpire conversation. I feel like you could get that dialogue going. Try to stay. I'm sure in your catcher's days you're trying to steal calls due to the relationship, but stay neutral as the umpire.
Yeah, you just don't. You never show up the umpire, so you communicate with him without ever turning around.
Yeah.
You know, there's a way to do it. I mean, there's kind of unwritten rules in baseball. You all know what they are, and
Yeah.
as long as you kind of stay within that, everything will be fine.
There you go. All right, so strike two. So I imagine you've been to quite a few cool baseball events cool baseball events within your career. Which one stands out for you as your favorite?
I'll give you a couple.
Okay.
Pete Rose, we did a show at Pete Rose's Ballpark Cafe in I think it was West Palm Beach.
Okay.
He sat down and we had dinner. He bought me dinner.
Really?
I thought that was really cool.
That is really cool. Nice.
Just a regular dude.
Yeah.
Got to
I've
meet
actually
Joe
I
DiMaggio.
heard Pete Rose was really good. You know, he had troubles in his career, but I've heard he was great with like people that worked at stadiums and things like that. He'd remember names and like ask how people were treat whoever, like small people at the stadium, like with lots of respect and things like that.
Well, I was certainly a small person.
Sorry.
And he was yeah, I mean, he was super genuine. I don't know. We sat down for 30 minutes and
Mhm.
sat at the bar, and some game was on, and bought me a beer and bought me dinner, and we just chatted a little bit. It was that was cool.
Nice.
Got to meet Joe DiMaggio in
Really?
New York. Yep, at one of our Gold Gloves, just briefly, like very like, hi, how are you? But that was kind of a moment, just that it was Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
And
is-
then also I'm a Midwest kid. Grew up in a small town in Illinois. But
Uh-huh.
we did get to do an event at Field of Dreams.
Okay. Nice.
When it was shortly after the Field of Dreams. So it's not as commercialized as it is now. But
Yeah.
so anyway, that kind of hit home, like, all right, this is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That is pretty neat. Nice. Those are pretty cool. And then for the third question, I've heard this answer before, but I feel like everybody should know. Roman, what Big 8 conference baseball record do you hold from your days at Mizzou?
Well, see, when you ask that question, first of all, you have to. A lot of people are, I'm ancient, so they don't Big 8. They don't know what the Big 8 is. So
Yes,
Missouri's
that's
in the
true.
SEC.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're in the SEC now.
Yep.
Prior to that, they were in the Big 12, which
Mhm.
still exists for the most part.
Yeah.
But prior to that was the Big 8.
Yep.
So that was Missouri, Oklahoma State, Iowa
KU,
State,
K-State.
KU, K-State, Colorado, and so yeah, there's Big 8 conference. But I hold the record for most innings caught in the bullpen by any catcher in Big 8 history. It'll never be broken.
Nice. They that's great. No, there's no more Big 8, so that'll last for years.
Yeah, no one caught as many innings as me, Garrett, in the bullpen. That's for sure.
That's funny. I remember Roman's told this story. He's also been, when we had our bats podcast going, Roman told it as well. And our host, Tyler, I remember Tyler saying, this sounds made up after you told
I guess it's not a Guinness Book of World Records, but I just don't think anyone throughout 5 years has ever caught as many bullpens as me. So
there you go. You had that extra year too. That's what secured it. So
yeah,
nice.
So, but I also have another record now.
What's that?
Well, it's a pro athlete record.
Yes, Roman. Yeah, I think it's today. Roman has set the record for being on both the Just Bats and the Just Gloves podcast.
As the first guest for both.
That's right. You are the first. You're the very first podcast guest ever. If you could find a way to, I think we do sometimes still do the Just Paddles one as well. If you could find a way to get yourself onto the Paddles one, that would be impressive.
That's right. I have to strike out. It'd be strike 3 right there.
There you go. Well, nice, Roman. We appreciate you coming on today. Been a great interview, and thanks for sharing those stories. Those are pretty cool to hear, especially for those of us
super
from that
fun.
era.
You guys are the best. You really are. You guys are
Awesome.
the best. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you everybody for listening to this episode of Beyond the Glove podcast. If you guys enjoy the show, best thing you can do, share it with friends. And if you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, go ahead and give us that 5-star review as well. Till next time, have a great day.